All right, so we now have got it so that we can destroy the aliens. Now we have to uh, set it up so that the aliens can fire on us, and they gradually move down closer to us too. But let's get the firing working first. Let's see if we look at the game. Let's start a new game here. If we look at the game, it looks like just one of these guys just is randomly chosen to just one of the aliens is just randomly chosen to fire every once in a while, and it's just the front row that's doing the firing. It looks or whoever doesn't have an alien in front of him is the only ones that can fire. Looks like, but for now, since we only have one row, we're making our life easier to start with, and then we can add other things. But for now, we just have one row of aliens. So for now, let's just work with that one row. So what I'm thinking is, if we want to randomly choose one of these guys, what class would be the logical place to do that? Well, to me, the world is the one that kind of keeps track of all the actors, all the different actors. So I would think, like you could have something in Alien to say randomly shoot after a certain amount of act things, but it looks like there's really, we want to make sure that there's just one at a time firing is what it looked like to me from the game. So I'm going to use space to control all those. So so that means we need an act method in space, and let's see. So act is a public void, and what we'll do is we'll let's see, is it regular intervals? Let's make it regular intervals. So let's make like we did with the space bar business. We'll say private static final int firing intervals equals I don't know. We'll try 20 and see what that looks like, or maybe 30 would be better. And then we'll just say and then we'll need a counter to keep track of our how many times we've gone through act, right? So I'm going to make that private. Now that's not going to be final because I am going to change it, and it's not going to be static. It could be static because since there's only one space, but I think of it more as a an instance kind of thing. So private int let's say act counter. We'll start it at 0. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll say now what we're going to do, how are we going to do this? We want to do it, let's say we want to go add 1 to the act counter, right? And then when the act counter gets up to 30, let's say, if act counter is, or in our firing interval. So if the act counter is bigger, let's say, than our firing interval, that's when we'll randomly pick one of the aliens to fire, and then we'll set our act counter back down to 0. Okay, and then that way we'll keep going back up to 30. Every time we hit 30, we'll pick a guy. Okay, so how do we pick out a random alien? Well, we can get all the alien objects, right? Oops, how do we do that? Let's see. So from the world, we can what is it? Get objects, right? Oh yeah, get objects. So we can get all the objects of a certain class. Okay. Now this one, notice it's not a java.lang, it's a java.util, which means we are going to have to do an import. Okay. If the package name, if you see a package name like this, java.lang, that means you don't need to do an import because it's part of the regular Java language. But anything other than that, like java.util, we need to import that. So let's do that first. Copy. And we're doing these changes in space here. In our space class. Import, paste. Java.util.list. Because we're going to get a list of what? Of actors, right? So a list of aliens equals, what was it? Get objects, and then we have to pass as a parameter the class of objects we want to get. So equals get objects alien.class. Okay, because the class that we want to get is this, alien guy. Okay, so we get all those objects, and then we want to just randomly pick one. So how do you randomly pick something out of a list? Well, let's see. Oops. I think the best way to do that, to get the documentation, is to go to Java library documentation. So, and I'm going to find list. Okay. Again. Let's paste down because it's in the L's. There's a lot of classes that have the name list in them. Okay. Or listener. JList. We're getting close. List. Oh, that's not the one we want. That's Java AWT. We want Java util list. There it is, Java util. Okay. So, so we have this get that returns the element based on some index into the list. So if we give it a number, like if we give it the number 0, it'll give us the first element in the list, or the number 5. But we need to know the size of the list so we know how big, right? So size tells us how many elements there are in the list. And get will get us an element in the list. So how do we do this? Well, we know, so what we want is, let's say we had some magic number I that told us, it's alien I that we want. Well, first we should probably check to see if there are any aliens on the board, right? So we could say if the list is empty, or well, if the list is empty, then we don't want to do anything. So let's check to see if the list is not empty. Then what we could do is get some random number I that's going to be our index into the list. So the list has a particular size, so I has to be smaller than the size of the list, right? So if we said, in other words, if we said I equals aliens size, that would be too big, because like if the size of the list is 2, then the only indices you could use would be 0 and 1. There are 2 indices you can use, 0 and 1, but then if you tried to use 2, that would be too big. So we could say, you know, some number smaller than alien size. And what we want, remember, we're using this to pick one of the aliens at random. So we have, effectively in this list, we have alien 0, alien 1, alien 2, and so on, up to however many aliens there are left. And that's going to change, right? Because if you're firing on them, sometimes they're going to be there and sometimes they're not, right? So you want to get the size of that list, and then you want to randomly pick out that number. So let's do this. Let's say number of aliens equals aliens.size. Okay. So now, if we want to randomly pick one, let's let this be our number I. Then, if we say equals greenfoot dot get random number, I think. Let me check that and make sure I'm right about that. So if we go in and say greenfoot get random number, get random number limit. It says return a random number between 0 inclusive and limit exclusive. So limit is not included. So if the limit was 2, then the random number could be either 0 or 1. If the limit was 3, the random number could be 0, it could be 1, it could be 2. Okay, so we're picking a random number. So if we pick a random number that's the number of aliens, right, then that number, then we can just choose that that guy from the list of aliens. So then our alien, our random alien, would be aliens dot get I. Okay, so then we get that, we pick that random alien from the list of aliens. Okay, so now we can give that, we can tell that particular alien to shoot. So let's tell the random alien to shoot. Okay, now that's not going to work because, well, yeah, a couple of reasons, right? For one thing, this list just has a list of actors in it, or really just a list of objects. So we have to have a way of telling it that this object, we know that the object is an alien, right? But we have to, Java tests, the compiler tests and says, well, I know this is an object, but if you know for sure it's an alien, you got to convince me. So I'm going to cast it. Okay, so if I say parentheses, the class name, and then close parentheses, that casts the result to what I want. Let's see if that compiles. Okay, that compiles, but then it says shoot. I don't have a shoot method in alien, so I need to add a shoot method to alien. So let's add a shoot method to alien. Okay, so public void shoot, and right now it does nothing. So let's go to space. So why in the world would I write a method that does nothing? Well, I want to make sure everything compiles first, and then I can go and fill this guy in. So so sometimes you want to write a method that does nothing. Programmers call this a stub, as kind of a placeholder to say, you know what, when I get around to it, I'm gonna do this. But for now, I just want to make sure that, basically, I want to make sure I haven't broken anything in my code. Okay, so let's check that. Let's run this and make sure we haven't added any functionality yet, because when we say shoot, we are randomly picking a shooter, but we're not. Our shoot method doesn't do anything, so we shouldn't see any difference at all in functionality, but hopefully we didn't break anything, so let's just make sure. Okay, yeah, so it's still doing what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, so let's recompile. Oh, and now we want to write our shoot function, right? So now we need an alien bullet, don't we? So our alien bullet is going to be kind of like our shooter bullet, except it's going in the other direction. And so its direction is going to be 90, and other than that, it's very similar, isn't it? Well, the one difference, one important difference, is that that we need to test if we've been hit by an alien bullet, and aliens need to check to see if they've been hit by a shooter bullet. So we do kind of need separate classes, but it looks like their functionality is very similar. So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a bullet class. And I'm going to make my shooter bullet and my alien bullet subclasses of my bullet class. So this is going to extend bullet. So now shooter bullet is a subclass of bullet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these all of this stuff here, because it's more or less what I want to do in my bullet class. Paste that. Except this needs to be now, this constructor needs to be called bullet, because remember the constructor is a regular method, is similar to a method, but it has no return value, and the name of the method has to be exactly the same as the name of the class. Okay, so this will compile. But now what I want to do is I want to be able to decide what my direction is when I set up the class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instead of having this be a private static final, I'm going to make it be actually, static still kind of makes sense because it's going to be for every one. But I want to be able to change it. So I want the I want to be able to say in the constructor what I want my direction to be. In fact, yeah, I think I'll even make this just be a regular instance variable. So that means I should change it to lowercase to say it's just an instance variable, and say copy and paste. And I could have a default direction, say, of 270 or of 90 or whatever. And then what I'll do is I'll say I'll make a constructor that lets me decide what I want the starting direction to be, because the direction for the bullet for the shooter is north, right? But the direction of the bullet for the aliens is south. So I want to be able to say bullet int direction, and then and then initialize the direction that way. Oh, actually, I don't even need this instance variable, do I? Because I'm just going to I could just set it this way. So what I can, and then what I'll do is, if I don't give a direction, I'll use the default direction. So let me say copy and paste. And even a better way to handle this would be to say this default direction. So what happens here is when you use the this keyword, we've seen this the keyword this before to refer to the object that's running this method. So when I say this here, I'm talking about I want to use the same I want to use the constructor for bullet, but it's the constructor for bullet that takes an int as an input. So that's this constructor. So basically, when you say this, if you're inside a constructor and you say this and and some arguments, what you're saying is call the constructor that takes these arguments. So if I do bullet without any inputs, if I just say new bullet and no inputs, then it's going to use the default direction. Okay. Otherwise, if I give it a direction, it's going to set the rotation to that direction. So it's going to start off in that direction. Oh yeah. So default direction actually should be a static, right? So it can't. You can't use an instance variable in here because you haven't constructed the object yet, so the instance variable doesn't exist. But if you use it as a class object, then it exists before any objects have been created, so it'll compile. Okay. So and that's how what you should do for defaults, is make them private static. Okay. So here's my integer. So now for my shooter bullet, then I really don't need to do anything in here because it'll just inherit everything from bullet, and it should just work. Let's just make sure that works. Yeah, looks like everything's still working. So what was the point of that? If we have a shooter bullet that doesn't do anything, well, now what we can do is make another subclass called alien bullet. And that subclass is going to act differently. Let's do a set image. And we're probably going to have to play with this too, right? Because if we want to use move and we can just say set direction. You know, yeah, okay. Let's do, so let's say alien 1 bullet. Let's go in here and let's rotate. Rotate right or left. Rotate it. We want to rotate it counterclockwise, right? So it'll be facing east. So is that this way? No, I got it backwards. Let's see. So left, left. There, that way. Okay. So now if we, I don't know. Let's see what it looks like. Actually, now if we make it face, yeah. So if we make it face 90, that should work. Okay. So let's go here. Let's do that set image again. Let's see. Make sure. I should have turned it. Let's see. What do we got here? Alien 1 bullet. Yeah, that looks right. I think maybe if I just recompile. Let's see. Nope. Alien bullet set image. Alien 1 bullet. That looks weird. And here, alien 1 bullet. Oh, I changed it in the wrong version, didn't I? So let's copy this one. I'll copy this one into Space Invaders 4 is where I'm at, right? Images. And paste. And I'll replace the one that's in there. Alright. So now when I say set image, there it is. Okay, that's what I want. Alright, and now if I compile it. There we go. Okay. So so now when I shoot, let's see. Oh, so now, yeah, so this guy, I want in his constructor, this guy needs a constructor to say public, alien bullet set what was set rotation. Oh, let's do it this way. Let's say public static final int or private static default direction, because his default direction is going to be down. Default direction equals 90. Okay, and now we can say alien bullet. We'll make both. We'll make the two constructors that we did in bullet. So in bullet, remember we had two constructors. We had one with no parameters and one with the direction parameter. So we'll say int direction. That one is going to just set rotation to the direction, and this one is going to be our this default direction. Okay, so now this guy has a direction. The act, we'll just use the same act as we have for bullet, because for bullet we say move step size. We're moving. Remember, we always move in the direction that we're facing. So if we're for a southward moving guy, we should be going south. So let's just try. Let's see. Let's recompile this, and let's just try see if we can run the shoot method from here and see what happens. I don't see anything. So let's see. Did we? Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't do anything for shoot yet, did we? So shoot wants to do basically what we did, what shooter did when the space bar was hit, right? So we want to get world, add object, shooter bullet there, right? So that's really kind of all we need to do. We can kind of copy that little bit, because we're not checking for space bar or anything like that. We're just, whenever we're randomly told to shoot, that's when we're going to shoot. So if I paste that, and I'm going to do my auto layout and see if that'll compile. Okay, looks like that compiled. Let's compile the whole deal. Now let's try saying shoot. Shoot. Oh, and there it is. It appears right there. But how come it's not going? And that looks like the wrong bullet. But let's see. Ah, what happened to the act method? So there should be, it should be calling this act method every time, right? Oh, you know what? So one thing we didn't do was we're adding the shooter bullet. We should be adding the alien bullet, right? And it could be that the shooter bullet didn't move because it was already at the top of the screen. Let's see. So now I'm going to say shoot. Oh, it appears, but it's not moving. Oh, because I didn't press run, did I? So let's recompile. Let's run. Ah, look at this. All these guys are shooting. And they're shooting one at a time. They're kind of randomly doing it. That's cool. So, so our act in space is working. And if you wanted to space them out more, you would just change your firing interval. So we might make our firing interval a little bit more. And if we want to slow down the action, we could make that be 60, right? To make our life easier as the player. So compile it. Yeah, I always forget to press run. So if I say run now, we're just kind of randomly picking things out. So the next step would be if we need to do the remove objects over here, right? And if we get blasted, then we need to take ourselves out of the way.